episode of the BAT podcast. I'm here at BAT HQ with Zach. Zach, what's going on?
Hey, man. Good to be back.
And we got Alex Porter joining us today. Alex is the director of auction production. He heads up the whole team of men and women that produce all the auction listings, writing and editing and everything under that roof. Alex, haven't seen you since what, March 10th?
15 months, 16 months, something like that. Yeah, we shut down March 10th. The office shut down, I think, March 10th of last year. So really exciting to be here with you guys. I've really been enjoying the podcast, so it's an honor to be invited on, but also good to see Howard. Zach and I have had a couple of fun adventures over the last few years in cars, but good to see you and good to be with you.
Totally. This is the same digital chair that Jay Leno sat in just the other week.
Amazing.
Yeah, this is huge, Alex. You're coming in the draft to Leno. That's big shoes to fill.
I know. Nothing will make me feel less important than hearing that.
Yeah, totally. There's no way I can fill those shoes at all. But that's okay. I did. My family is kind of acquaintances with Leno, and I went to see his cars as a teenager when I was 13 years old in the mid 90s, back when his collection, though not humble, was more humble than it is now. So he's an amazing collector.
I hear you're whipping pedal cars around in that.
That's exactly right. As I recall, now I'm just turned 38 years old. So I was 13, I think, at the time. And he had like a little miniature E-Type thing that Debbie Reynolds had given him, as I recall. And it had a 2-speed manual transmission and probably like a lawnmower engine in the back. And he pulled the ripcord himself and offered to let me drive it around. I was driving it around in between his Duesenbergs and his hangar there back in the mid 90s.
Wow, Alex, why did we wait 22 episodes to finally bring you on this thing? This is great.
He'd also just bought the Walker Coupe, an amazing Duesenberg. I hope we get to talk Duesenbergs a little bit today. Love those cars. So
what, 20 years ago or 25 years ago? What your dad and you whipped down from SLO to Burbank, and was Leno at Burbank then, or he was?
Burbank Airport, same facility. I think it was one hangar back then. I think he has multiple now. I've been back a few times since, although not maybe in 10 plus years. But God, no, I was 13, so I still lived out in the desert. My dad and him had a mutual acquaintance, a guy who did restorations on kind of horseless carriages, Stanley steamers, brass era cars, who had done upholstery on a couple of Leno's cars. My dad had a Vincent motorcycle, Leno, a prolific Vincent collector. So he hooked the two of them up, and I got the chance there as a teenager to go see those cars. He had the Shogun back then. He had the McLaren back then.
Nice.
Some of the cars that are kind of iconic, and a bunch of Duesenbergs. It was amazing. I mean, as a 13-year-old, and that was when, kind of like Tonight Show glory. That was like when he was like the man. That
was the Vincent your dad sold on BAT, right? Same one?
Well, sold. That was the Vincent that my dad failed to sell on
Almost
Bring a Trailer, but did auction on Bring a Trailer.
He knew what it was worth. He didn't have to sell it.
Yeah, that's right. First Vincent on Bring a Trailer. I'm very, very proud of that. That was a project bike that my dad, my whole youth, my whole life, that he'd never put together, was in boxes, and then finally got it put together, threw it on Bring a Trailer, and didn't sell it. But it has now been sold.
So, yeah, I think audience would love to hear, Alex, about what you do. This is actually significant. The three of us are sitting here, not only because we haven't all been together in the same room in 16 months, but back in the early days of BAT, this was the OG crew. Once upon a time, it was just the three of us and Randy sitting at the old BAT office, cranking out the, at the time, much smaller weekly auction menu. So now we're here. Same number, same hood. Still the three of us.
No longer our personal MacBooks, thankfully.
That's right. Some company supplied equipment. I miss those days a lot. I think about them a lot. It was amazing for me. It was basically like a stay-at-home dad, and I was reading Bring a Trailer all the time. But I for the listeners out there, the viewers, I applied for both Zach and Howard's jobs. And lucky for Bring a Trailer, I did not get those, but I kept applying, and finally got that job. That let's see, when was that? May of 2016.
I remember when Randy called you to deliver the news. I think you were in Vegas, and I could. You were probably maybe I'd stayed out a little late the night before, but
I expected your voice to be a lot more hoarse when I met you in person after that.
It sounded like a muted excitement is how I would describe your reaction.
I was extremely excited to get the call, a little bit embarrassed and chagrined that Randy was calling me in the state that I was in, 10 a.m. on a morning in my Vegas hotel room. But really exciting to get the news nonetheless. And
that was then, this is now.
Yeah. I'm older and wiser. Still like Las Vegas. Still like to go there. Still like to have a few drinks when I'm there. But it's been an amazing ride. And back when I started in 2016, I was hired. I guess I was editing listings and doing a lot of customer service. I mean, we all wore all the hats back then, and so to now, 5 years later. Be overseeing a team of more than 50 people who are writing the listings and are kind of interacting directly with our sellers and making sure they have a great experience and that they're successful and that they get their cars sold. It's been an amazing ride. Incredible.
Yeah, going from managing 50 auctions a week to 50 people a week, pretty incredible transition.
I remember Randy being so fired up when we got to 40 a week. He was like, visibly and physically excited about that, and now we're 410x 10x that number.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how far it's come, and we're lucky to have you at the helm of that department, which is so crucial. What we're doing every week. We'll have to have you back and maybe take some audience Q&A for. I'm sure there's a lot of questions about kind of how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people, I read the comments all the time, sometimes take very, very personal offense when people imply that maybe we don't do our due diligence, or that we're not, paying enough attention or don't care about what we're doing. I mean, the group of folks that I work with every day who are working with sellers and who are putting the listings together, they're so passionate.
It's too much due diligence. No, just kidding. No,
I mean, but they love cars so much. They know so much. The kind of combined knowledge of the folks writing the listings is like mind blowing. I can't believe it. And the care that they take and the passion they have for making sure that our sellers are successful and informed and I mean, it blows my mind every day. And so, just hats off to those folks. I'm just, it's just an honor to work with them, really.
Okay. Well, you wanted to talk Duesenbergs. We're talking about all the auction specialists who have to know a thing or two about a thing or two to actually be in that role. We just sold for the Indy Motor Speedway Museum a 1935 model JN by Rolston Doozy. Definitely probably my and certainly your favorite pre-war car we've ever sold. I know your dad was and is a big Auburn Core Duesenberg gent, and you were raised the same way. So yeah, tell us about that car and how fired up you were that we got the opportunity to list it.
So fired up. Howard, you are the other kind of pre-war guy. Tell me, do you know the difference between like a regular J and a JN?
I more specialize in SJs and SSJs. JN's a bit beneath me.
Okay, so JN, there may be some super wonky ACD guy out there who would correct me, but my understanding is that they're the kind of the last Duesenberg. So in the mid 30s, to kind of freshen up the Model J. It's the middle of the Depression. People aren't, stoked to buy these expensive cars. So
Dust Bowl, go on.
Totally. The Jones are coming out to California from Oklahoma, and then there's EL Cord sitting on a bunch of Model J Duesenbergs already built. How do you sell them? Well, the last few, they put this kind of more streamlined body on it. You can see that the body work is a little bit, so like a lot of earlier J's are Murphy bodied. There's also a bunch of cool like Sowcheck and other bodybuilders did bodies for J's, but Rolston did these late JNs. They have a little bit more fared in fenders. They've got smaller wheels. I think they're like 17s instead of 19s. It's a J underneath, but the look of the car is modernized a little bit. And so I think that's the last 10 Model J chassis are these JNs. And I actually think they look fantastic. I know the J with the big cycle fenders is a little bit more classic. And they're fantastic looking cars too. But I think these JNs are wonderful. I will actually say the car. This was an amazing result. These are super cool cars. I'm a huge Model A Duesenberg fan, so that Model A.
The only other Duesenberg we've ever sold, in
Right,
fact.
that's right. Except we had a Model A Duesenberg owner's manual one time, which was also exciting for me to edit way back in the day. But that Model A Opera Coupe, also cool. That's pre-Cord acquisition for the Duesenberg brothers. So that's also a super cool car. I like both of them a lot.
I love all that stuff. For me, for design and price point, it's an L29 Cord for me.
Not a very good car, but a very beautiful car.
I think they're so beautiful. I think if this JN Duesenberg is $1.3 million and L29 Cord for a fourth or a fifth the price, that'd be my pick. But we could probably dedicate a whole podcast. We'll have to crack some Sancerre and dedicate one to ACD and the ins and outs.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I'm a 810. I ride or die 810, 812 Cord. That's my jam, right?
We had a few of those. Yeah, supercharged, non-supercharged.
Gorgeous.
Non-supercharged with the pipes.
The Cord you own is?
The Cord I own is the world's rattiest 1936 810 Westchester, the kind of original design, no bustle trunk.
And where's that car at in process right now?
That car is in Southern California, as it has been for many decades.
But you own a Cord? I don't even know that.
Is this
You
news
didn't
to you?
know that?
Oh, come on.
Oh, yeah.
Literally did not know that.
Oh, yeah.
Discovering that live on the cast right now.
Yeah, 1936.
For those that are listening, Howard literally has tears in his eyes upon hearing this news.
Well, you don't need to cry. It's shitty. It's 36 Westchester, ancient restoration. Just had the motor taken apart during the pandemic. It had 9 cracks in the block. 85-year-old motor that had never been rebuilt. So kind of.
Are you the youngest addition to the Cord's owners club this year?
People sign their kids and grandkids up for the Auburn Cord Duesenberg Club. So
in spirit, you're not. In spirit, you're probably maybe one of the oldest, but in numerical age, you're young. Yeah,
That's right.
38's the new 37.
I love all those cars. I'm really hoping, my dad is a lifelong ACD guy, I'm really hoping to get that car put together and drive it in Auburn. Maybe not drive it all the way to Auburn, but drive it around Indiana for the big national.
I want to see you drive it in SF.
Totally.
9 cracks in the block, whether it's 3 or 9, doesn't make a difference. You just sleeve that thing, or you're gonna throw it in the junkyard and Leno style, just 3D print a whole nother block. He'd probably help you out with
I had to get everything new for it, so it's got new heads, which are aluminum on that car. It's got I'm doing what I can to soup it up.
Do you have to custom fab the headers? What was the story on that?
Yeah, so it's a weird car. It has outside pipes. So Cords and Duesenbergs are famous for their outside exhaust pipes that go from the hood into the fender. On a Duesenberg, obviously all on one side, but on a Cord, since it's a V engine instead of an inline 8, 2 on each side. And this car, even though it's not supercharged, has the outside pipes like a lot of the supercharged cars had. And so, yeah, I had to do a bunch of work on those. It needed everything, Zach. It needed everything. But we're in the midst of doing that. It's going to be awesome. Have you driven a Cord, Howard?
I have not. Isn't it funny how people used to put, supercharged pipes on a non-supercharged car, and that transition to people putting a big wing on their Supra or whatever. People did it better back in the day.
Cords
it's the old modern fake hood scoop, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. The old gold package.
It's the air intakes on the 01 Mustang rear fenders.
I mean, the problem with Cords is they're not very good cars. So people would, rip the body off. I mean, they're semi-unibody. They're really weird. But people would put them on rear-wheel drive chassis all the time, right? So that's what happened to a lot of them, which is too bad, because I think the front-wheel drive weirdo configuration is part of what makes them so cool.
But most people cars drive like.
That's right. But
that's part of the romance and the beauty of it, right?
I mean, if you can get a Cord working, it's remarkably modern. It's got a 4-speed transmission. It's got hydraulic brakes, right? It's front-wheel drive. It rides real nice. It'll easily keep up with modern traffic on a freeway. So the key is just getting it to work right, especially the weirdo pre-selector transmission.
Is it pre-selector?
Yeah. It's got, the reason they've got that big, beautiful long hood is the transmission sticks way out of the nose, right? So it's like a V8 powertrain backwards. So the transmission sticks out in front with half shafts sticking out. And the way that you operate the transmission is like an electrical connection from the little stalk on the side that sticks off the side of the steering column. And that sends an electrical signal way up past the engine to the transmission up front. And then when you depress the clutch, that completes a circuit. And then there's a hydraulic like ram up in the front that changes the
So
gears.
you've just described the exact process that like a 99 360 gearbox goes through, right? And length of time.
Totally. At least Cord had a reason for doing it.
Yeah.
See, I've never driven a pre-selector, but you have to. I mean, I guess you're not like hammering into the corners, but you got to remember what gear you've pre-selected when you let the clutch out, and you require a bit more concentration than driving new cars. But
You're probably talking about Cotals, right? Cotals from your racing days.
I wish I could say factually that I've raced a pre-war car with a pre-selector gearbox, Cotal or otherwise, but I have not. Wow, that's cool. That's cool. I hope you. I don't know what's more expensive, restoring a Cord or having 3 kids in San Francisco.
Jesus, man. No one's ever going to let me back on the podcast. I just realized we just went way too long on ACD cars. They're both expensive. The Cord's actually, you know what? Honestly, it's not that bad. It's not a super duper complicated car, and it's a well support because of the club and because so many people have been obsessed with them for so long. It's a car that's well supported, right? You can get almost everything new still for it. There's 2 different parts suppliers for Cords. One of them is, Glenn Prey's old operation, right? They bought all the stuff from Cord. That's Auburn Cord Duesenberg Company.
Yep.
Broken Arrow, Oklahoma.
Yeah. That's what's happening in Broken Arrow.
Totally.
So yeah, we've had some pretty neat cars on the site in the last week or so. Actually, my favorite's all skew American, so Duesenberg is a good place to start. I wasn't a muscle car guy when I started here, but I'm kind of starting to feel some of the good 60s and 70s stuff. Most recently, we had a car that ended today, which will probably be last week by the time this airs, but 70 Plymouth Superbird, just so iconic. This, was quintessential orange, big wing.
Love it.
No reserve, so kudos to that seller and had a great result. Car I really like, we had a 68 Roadrunner Hemi 4-speed, black with Steelies and hubcaps. I just thought it looked so badass. With all this American stuff, 1 year can make such a difference in, whether you love it or don't love it so much. But yeah, 68, 69 Roadrunners definitely.
I agree that the value proposition around 40 grand for American muscle compared to contemporary European sports cars, it's like 40 grand, 68 Chevelle 4-speed versus kind of like a scruffy 912. It's pretty incredible value and an experience, I think, that is arguably superior in a lot of ways.
I agree. Some of those American cars of that era, like the interiors, are like so horrible.
I know.
Maybe some people won't agree with that, which is totally fine. I wasn't around in '68 driving them around, so if I was and necking in the back seat, I probably would look at it more fondly. But that can be forgiven. I think. We've listed some cool stuff.
I was just texting a buddy today about the gold AMX 390 AMX 4-speed on the site.
Goal.
I've always liked AMXs.
We've listed a ton of awesome AMXs.
I think they're so cool. They're kind of weird looking. I've always heard the interiors are shitty on those too. And I was
for 35K, what more has more curb appeal than that?
Totally. They're super duper cool. And that's who's selling that, Zach? That's one of our repeat sellers.
That's our buddy Bill Noon in San Diego.
Bill Noon, that's right. I was surprised to see Bill Noon with a muscle car. I don't know if I've ever seen.
Is that live now? Yeah, we're emailing.
It's live right now.
It is. Wow, that's so great.
It's cool. It's no reserve. It's awesome looking. I've always liked those a lot. And there was one of my favorite cars during the pandemic was a black GTX that was had kind of a rusty roof, and it was just all black and evil and kind of like looked like something that belonged in like a period movie, something you would see chasing the hero's car. 4-speed, big displacement. I love that kind of stuff too. I'm totally with you.
Yeah, don't sleep on GTX 440s. It looks just like a 427, but at half the price. And by 427, I mean 426.
I think this was a 440. I'm going to look it up because I can't remember.
I'm sure
exactly
it was.
what it was.
Another thing I like, which reminded me of this funny, me and Randy were at some deal a few years back, and some guy was talking to us, and he was into what he was calling adventure vehicles and cars decked out with kind of Westphalia style, but any number of specifically vans, if I recall him correctly, and go anywhere stuff. You can live in it for 10 days. And he kind of made the point that, adventure vans, Howard and Randy are big, and, it's frankly a market that BAT has totally missed. And so we had an '88 Dodge Diplomat police car recently that sold this week.
Yeah, dude.
So we've missed adventure vans, but we're going to make up for it because we don't want to miss vintage police cruisers. I think that is interesting. This was it was a little later than Smokey and the Bandit era, but I don't know, that body style of Diplomat and everything else that was brand engineered around it probably goes back to early '80s. This was so sweet. I think everyone has we're from California, so the CHP livery speaks to us. If you're from Michigan, if you're from South Dakota, your cruisers, your trooper, squad cars, everyone out there knows what their state rigs are and what you identify with. But this one was extra cool. Came with some memorabilia package, a CHP uniform,
awesome.
An '80s Falcon radar gun. Awesome. This guy really did it right. I mean, the car was what it was.
Halloween 2021 is going to be ridiculous.
Oh man!
Did Chippies ever wear the state trooper hats? That's the one thing I'm missing.
They totally did.
They did. Okay,
yeah.
It would have had to have been back in the day. It's been a while. I feel like I haven't seen it.
Crisp hats.
Totally, so good.
Yeah, like a cross between a cowboy hat and a top hat, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Very intimidating, especially over a mustache and some aviators. Here's that GTX. It was a 426 Hemi, so
nice on
makes it
Steelies.
even more awesome.
67. Okay, yeah, the 67 has got its own little styling cues.
Come on.
Yeah, 426 for $40,000. That's pretty ridiculous.
Baller. You're a little bit like one of the NASA mission control guys in your white shirts, short sleeve shirt, button up shirt with your black tie, but you're also, melting down the 185s with your 426 Hemi. I love it.
Did that car sell?
Yeah, $42,000. I think that's amazing. I mean, right? That's
It was.
you can't even get a 912 for that with 100 horsepower.
Sorry, convertible or
it's a coupe.
Coupe. Don't they call it a two-door hardtop?
I believe they do. I think you're probably right.
Yeah, nice. And I like the wheel tire package on it.
Come on.
Yeah.
I think I'm still 67 GTO over GTX, though. I'm sorry, guys.
Can't go wrong with that. Can't go wrong with that at all.
The GTOs, they look so tame in person that I respect it so much. It's so unassuming.
That's what I like about it.
Yeah.
I think that mid-60s Mopar styling is probably, other than maybe an early Mustang, like the first Mustang Fastback, that's probably my favorite muscle car look.
Yeah, I agree.
On the other end of the spectrum, yeah, go on.
I was going to ask you if you've ever been to the Highway Patrol Museum. I always hear good things about that. And they apparently have all the wild cars that they drove, right? There was my dad told me that he went, and my dad was a retired judge, and he said that he went 150 miles an hour on the I-14 in the 70s in something.
Well, let us not forget CHP used to drive Camaros E28s.
They did. This is before this. This would have been in the 70s, something that had a 440 wedge in it. I don't know what that would have been, but something. They had a Polar. They had a couple of things with
Polara.
They had a Polar with a big motor in it, maybe for 1 or 2 years.
Yeah, Coronet.
And he said a guy took uniform CHP officer. They went 150 miles an hour on I-14 out in the desert by Lancaster.
Wow.
In the 70s.
That probably feels like 250 miles an hour in that car.
Can you imagine? No, thank you. I mean, maybe, yes, please.
Where is that? The museum I immediately thought of, which is definitely not that museum, is in Taft or McKittrick.
Whoa.
I think maybe it's like a central California oil museum. Anyways, where's CHP Museum?
I'm sure it's in Sacramento. There was a Leno feature on that. The head of the CHP, the colonel or whatever, in his full dress uniform, went on and brought some CHP cars over to Jay.
Yeah, hey, I mean, 1199 Foundation's got a lot of cash flowing through, so that's
right.
keeping the museum exhibits going.
Yeah, I'm sure Mr. Leno not getting too many tickets.
The other car I liked this week on the other end of the spectrum, we had that Fiat Panda 4x4.
Oh, I missed that.
You guys you missed it. You know what? If you blinked, you would have missed it. My brother was actually digging that. He was texting me should we bid on this thing? Should I bid on this thing? I love it so much. Let's park it next to our...
It was here in the U.S.? Somebody brought it to the U.S.?
It was in the U.S. I think it was the Country Club edition.
Country Club, look at that.
I don't know what you go with the Country Club edition. Maybe you get I don't know, some fabric around the seat frames or something, but...
I'm way into
that. Man, that was cool. I think those could... Big market call on the pod. I think those could be coming up next.
All right, I love it, Howard. Good pod prediction.
I think they only made about 5.5 million of them.
So. Totally. That's actually a good segue. I want to get Zach's take on the Motocompo madness. We've pivoted into the esoterica here. So I've seen a lot of Motocompos popping up recently. I've seen some wild prices. I need two things from you, Zach. I need the Motocompos schooling. They came in some kind of a K car or something, didn't they?
City Turbo. City Turbo if you're a rich guy, but yeah, normal City.
And has the value of a Motocompo now exceeded the value of a Honda City? Well, what's number two?
That's right. No, well, I mean,
it's an exponential value add if you have the two
that's what I'm
together.
curious about that. I don't think you couldn't get them separate, right?
I think you might have been able to buy a Motocompo. Nobody quote me on that, but
then just why I get why they're exciting. They're sick. They're really awesome. Every time I've seen one in person, I'm like blown away. But like, why the insanity for them?
So my theory is, as the world opens up more and more people are getting back to work in their urban commutes, what other scooter can you unscrew the handlebars and seat, and then secure your parking spot out in the outer sunset, and then moto in to the financial district where your office is?
You think people are going to use them for that?
I'm being entirely sarcastic. But maybe I would love to. I only say that because the thought has legitimately crossed my mind that there's all-day parking about a mile from here, and you can almost shove a Motocompo in the trunk of an NSX, as I learned at JCCS one year. And to snab a free spot in SF and just motor in on that is like, what better life is that?
Wait, so what's been happening, Alex? We've listed a few, and they've brought big bucks, or what?
$8,000, $10,000? Is that right, Zach? Maybe $11,000?
Yeah, I think we had one. Going to the results now. 10.5 is currently the highest of a single Motocompo. But man, they're so charming. They nail the 80s graphics. It's good toy money in that sort of segment. If you're a guy that's shopping, I guess, a gram and a half, and you want to feel way cooler in the pits with your Motocompo, I mean, and you can unscrew the seat and bars and shove it in a car with a reasonable trunk. It's pretty legit.
And you could buy like 2.5 Subaru SVXs for that.
Howard always the apologist for the SVX. I'm actually a huge SVX fan.
I'm pretty sure the steering column in that car is more expensive than the car, though.
Talk about a car that you can actually go 140 miles an hour in, Subaru SVX.
Well, you had one, and I know because I rode it. It's the only one I've ever been in. I remember when they reviewed that car in Road Track and how fired up I was. Except I was bummed out there was no manual transmission. But
seatbelt presenters, man. That's all you need to know.
I also shop SVXs hard when I was looking for my first car when I was in high school.
There you go.
They were high on my radar.
Yeah, they're cool as hell.
Oh, yeah.
I could see that for you.
Thanks. It's both a compliment and an insult.
But you know, those things with how the windshield glass is, if you get your window broken, not that you would have gotten the window broken, but like you get your SVX windshield broken now, like the car is kind of total.
It's total.
Right? Yeah.
Who are like Safelight doesn't come out and offer an SVX glass package.
Totally. Did you drive that car a lot?
I personally probably drove it 1,000 miles. Maybe more.
I mean, you can't roll it with the window down, really. So does that like affect the kind of cruisability of an SVX?
I mean, I think you mean even when the window is down, it's not like it provides no airflow at all.
Right.
So it's a greenhouse. Yeah. But that car is like 3 fingers on the steering wheel max.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it I remember you got on it. It moved pretty good. It's like 250 horsepower, flat 6, I think. Something like that.
230 in there.
3.3 liter, I think.
Yeah.
SVX is a cool car.
Not a lot of flat 6s around.
You can get a front driver and AWD, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Oh, really? I thought they were all-wheel drive.
Ours was all-wheel.
Nice.
I think LSI was the top trim package, but they're well up. The seats are like Barca loungers.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was great. You know, actually, in hindsight, Zach, a little bit of NSX vibe. You kind of sit low, you sit back, low dash. I like that era.
It's in the meat of '90s Japanese luxury coupes.
Totally.
No, it's kind of the poor man's NSX a little bit.
Poor man's Unos.
I was going to drop a Unos full. You beat me to it.
But they were expensive when they sold new, right? I feel an SVX was like, I don't know how much. We got to look that up.
I'd be curious about that. I bet
it was not a cheap car.
35, 40 grand, something like that.
It was
okay.
High style Japanese luxury.
LSI AWD, the one you want, original MSRP 36 245.
36 in 1994 or whatever.
Yes.
So yeah, that was a 50, 60K car.
Yeah, man. I mean, but I'm still a believer in buying something that is weird and that you don't see all the time. I think there's value in that. So I like the idea of it. Right?
I do. It's a spiritual predecessor to like the new Lexus LC thing. Maybe when you see a young guy in a new Supra, that's the SVX we're at.
What are you cross shopping when you're buying an SVX.
FDRX7, and you say it's too harsh. It's too sporty. I need to dial it back. My heart rate's too high.
Right. No UNOS in the US.
Automatic Supra, maybe non-turbo.
Interesting.
Maybe like a 96 Impala SS. If you're really, cross shopping, you're really widening your
what do you think in
your reach?
What was a E320 coupe? What do you think that was? Is that too many levels above, like an E-Class coupe?
That's
W124
124 coupe. Yeah, that's probably in there.
There's no 6 Series anymore. Is there any big BMW coupe? Probably not.
And there may be an overlap year with the Riata in there.
Ooh,
maybe, yeah.
Alante is dead by then, probably, right?
Maybe Audi S6 back in the day.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, all-wheel drive.
Both of those, interestingly, are probably 95 Audi S6 and 95 SVX are probably both worth the exact same amount today.
Saw an S6 at Cars and Coffee this week.
It's a bunch of S6 owners crying right now.
Dude, S6s are cool. Like from a distance, I was like, is that an RS2? I mean,
they look great. Yeah, they look fantastic.
Great. Avis wheels, it looked cool.
Was that on? So yes, we've. Zach was on a cool car rally.
A nice segue.
That was an ugly segue.
Howard's getting visibly nauseous talking about SVXs. Anything to shift off this topic.
I did 8 a.m. Teeth cleaning this morning. So.
Yeah. We can talk about rallies. We've gone too deep on the SVX front, probably.
Cross shopping SVX. That wasn't on the docket for today. So
sorry.
This is what this is all about.
I've driven us pretty far afield.
No. People come on this thing. They apologize for going too far afield, but that's what we're here for.
Yeah. Howard, thanks for bringing us back to center, buddy.
Well, that's actually a good, maybe a repeat topic. Pick a car and what else could you have purchased if you were in the market?
What were you cross shopping? And then we also need to watch old Motor Week reviews and talk over them.
Oh yeah, that's research.
I've been getting down on some John Davis late at night after work.
John Davis. I was going to say young John Davis. Not really young John Davis. Younger.
He doesn't age.
John Davis.
Whether it's really 1985 or the more modern ones, he looks the same.
I was looking up RS3 Audis the other day, and there's John Davis whipping an RS3. I'm like,
how do you preserve those vocal cords? I need to know that secret.
Yes, his voice is just it's amazing. He's great.
So, okay, you want to talk about old cars?
So, no, I've been in New York for the last 2 months doing literally 0 car activities. Meanwhile, you guys have been out here doing stuff. So, hey, you did the Fault Line 500, which for people who aren't from California is an annual summer event on the California Central Coast. It's always 120 degrees, and people are lining up to hop in their old cars and drive around for a weekend. So tell us about that.
Yes,
Jack.
The start line is at Hollister, California, which is much less sexy than the T-shirt company would let on. It's a little bit.
There's an in and out there.
Hey, yeah, good pull.
Gateway to the Pinnacles.
Fault Line 500, great rally. Starts just as Howard described. It's sort of the heat, midsummer, California, 6 digits all weekend long, but spits out in Morro Bay, which is nice on the coast. You get that beautiful coastal air at the end. This was an interesting year for me because I brought my lovely girlfriend of going on almost 8 years here for her very first vintage car event. So,
welcome, babe.
I know, right? Yeah, that could entail a lot of things. Julia's
not. Relationship.
She's not the most mechanically inclined co-driver, but she can help in a pinch. She can provide some advice and insights. So as we're driving down to the start line, the car started to smell strongly of sulfur, which is not a smell I'm familiar with in most automobiles.
Wow, could you pick a less specific a mineral that it smelled of?
Wasn't good.
Yeah, well,
Julia already regretting her decision.
Yeah,
she's already regretting.
I'm here on this podcast with you now, so it didn't smell like Zyklon B. But so we're getting down there. Julia's visibly annoyed at what's right around 8 a.m. a little early for that scent. And I'm like, don't worry about it.
How many miles from your front door did the sulfur smell start?
Sulfur smell is probably about 80 miles or so. Gotcha, okay. Because I passed it off. I said, you know what, babe, we're driving through Gilroy, California. And that's just kind of the scent of the garlic capital of the world. It's a little sulfury.
Yeah.
So we keep going. We soldier on. We crack the windows early in the morning. We get to Hollister. We're hanging. Car still smells a little odd, but it's fine.
You're at the start line. You're with all your buddies.
Start line mingling, taking photos, acknowledging, the great 66 GTO that's there. Robert Lindsay, a resident expert on staff in the BAT 240Z. Yeah.
Robbie Pyle, another staffer there too.
Yeah, Pyle and his sweet right-hand drive step nose. I really like that car. It's hard for me to think of other highlights on the event because, spoiler alert, my event part was cut a little short.
Didn't end well for you.
It ended well. There was a painful middle section and some very enjoyable late-night drinking in between and a lovely drive up the one. But basically, car started doing some funny things electronically with some gauges, stronger smell. We get to the first stopping point, and now we're deep in Central California, deep, no cell service zone.
You got some waters? Did Julia at least stack up on waters at the last gas stop?
We did, and this sounds very pretentious, but Fiji water is actually the best water for an old car event because they're rectangular.
Yeah, they don't roll.
So they don't roll behind your brake.
That's brilliant, actually.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know. So you look like kind of an asshole carrying around a bunch of Fiji waters, but it's actually strategic.
It is.
It's artisan water for a reason.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sure it comes straight from the South Pacific.
It definitely does.
So yeah, we got our Fiji water. We stop. We go to start the car for the next leg. Photo op. Things are running a little weird and nothing. I get lights, but not cranking. So thankfully on an event like this, there's nothing but expertise among the 50 odd cars and 50 odd co-drivers with them. So kind of asking around, Robbie's dad wisely said, hey, we're about 2 hours from Kalinga. So if you can get this bad boy started, you can just cruise in and try and get another battery, which is what we chalked this all up to. So I say, okay, great. I'm able to jump it on my jumper pack. Start driving probably another 20 minutes or so. And then all of a sudden, people start coming the opposite direction, which is very surprising on an event like this where you have a lot of ground to cover in what is not the longest day. So why else would they be driving the other direction? But to warn me that apparently I have a bad voltage regulator. And I also learned what that means. Did you know that, Alex?
Spoiler alert, you called me a little bit later when you were in Coahuila.
Would you have known at the time?
Oh, God,
Yeah,
no.
tell us like the worst like WebMD bad voltage regulator. What's going to happen?
Let me just interject and say Julia also didn't know what to do about a bad voltage regulator.
No, it's totally fine. What's interesting is Zac, we were poking around his dual battery system like right before that, and you had some kind of a electrical gremlin. The generator light was coming on or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Exactly right.
Robert and I were trying to sound smarter than we were. Robert probably actually was being smart. I was not. We were kind of guessing. Maybe it was alternator or whatever. But probably was your voltage regulator this whole time.
We chalked it up to alternator issues. You were ripping around in that car just a week ago.
That's my favorite. Guys whose cars are working perfectly on side of road, shooting their mouth off, pontificating about what broken car guys might be the problem.
Yes,
Meanwhile,
right.
they don't care.
That's
They're going to
right.
get back in their car.
Totally. You also have to insert how much money you've just spent on your motor for your car that won't start. So I was doing a bit of that. They basically said you need to turn off your car immediately before your battery explodes because that means they're getting overcharged, which means they're getting very hot. And that means I could have started the next 2021 California wildfire, but thankfully, due to the expertise on the event, somebody had experienced the exact same issue as 914, which also shares the same voltage regulator as a 911.
And you said I was just overcharged on the price of my motor rebuild, so this is perfect.
Good double entendre.
Oh,
Overcharging
my
the
God.
battery, overcharging on expensive 911
Totally
engines.
just kicking me so hard while I'm
Totally.
down. So yeah, I was able, through a long ordeal, able to get it started again with the new voltage regulator on sort of the last breath of my NOCO. Shout out to NOCO. Everyone should have one. Those lovely little jump pack chargers.
Yes, great plug. Not a sponsor of the BAT podcast.
Not yet. Yeah. Shout out to NOCO. I'm not a hard guy to find. So
Okay, so NOCO and CHP Museum. Maybe we can get a few bucks out of those guys.
Yeah.
CHP, well known for shelling out.
We're all
for
three of
podcasts.
us are in NOCO t-shirts and CHP hats on the next one with our $11.99 foundation plates and Versa. So and then I drove the car. So I was able to jump start it, pull the battery, and run it just on the jump pack as the battery source from basically middle of nowhere, literally middle of nowhere, in no cell service, California, about 2 hours into Kalinga, and then I pulled that battery and rigged up a motorcycle battery into my battery box, which mostly fit. It's a fine temporary solution. Then cruised into Morro Bay, had a great night.
And the call to Alex.
Oh yeah. Do you want to recount that?
Yeah, I'm doing dishes, doing my domestic chores around my house on a nice Saturday, and I get a call from Zac. I'm excited. We're gonna share some pleasantries, maybe just do some gossiping about work. No, he's broken down, or no, not broken down, because I think you'd already put the battery in by then. The car wouldn't start in Coalinga, was where you were at the time.
Yeah, I think I flooded it in an act of desperation.
Zac, his voice was calm, but I could tell his spirit was not calm.
Yeah.
And I think he'd been pumping on the throttle pedal a fair amount.
Voice rock solid, relationship very shaky.
Totally.
Normally it's the other way around.
I do believe I asked about Julia almost immediately. How's she doing? How's she holding up?
No, the king size kombucha was finished long ago, and the Fiji waters were running low.
Yeah, I think we boiled off all the probiotics in that bad boy.
Was Harris Ranch a stop in Coalinga or no?
No, we didn't make the Harris. I mean, we were beat.
You're at the AutoZone, right? I've been to that AutoZone in Coalinga before to buy
very kind people
for my broken Porsche.
He helped me rig up this ghetto battery solution that basically saved my life and my relationship. So yeah, shout out to that AutoZone for sure.
Yeah,
no stop there, but the drive back the next day went out totally fine. No,
you jetted straight to Morro Bay after Coalinga.
Morro Bay, yeah, I think that story from there gets a little too PG-13. But next day, we drove Highway 1 all the way back up into the Bay Area.
On a motorcycle battery.
Yeah.
Which is still in the car that you drove to work.
It's basically like the equivalent of, because the 911s have dual battery setup, and they're basically moto-sized. It's kind of equivalent. It's not the exact same dimensions, but it's totally fine. So
you drove the 1 after all that? I would have 101.
One all the way.
Oh, man,
beautiful coast.
And that car is here in front of the office.
That's the beauty of no electric power steering. If it dies, I can still steer to the right, but if you're in a new Infiniti, you're going off the cliff.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
So lovely stop at Nepente.
Well, I've been on at least 2 or 3 rallies with you, and you've done some other ones, and this is your first kind of mechanical issue, right?
Yeah, it's funny. You always think on these rallies, I'm so glad I'm not that guy, because there's always every single year some guy that's having a brutal mechanical issue. Yeah. This year I was that guy.
It's good. It's a rite of passage. It's part of
overcoming adversity is what builds character. So totally. I hear.
Totally.
And was there attrition on the event? Did other cars break, or most people were pretty reliable?
Yeah, there was the heat. A lot of old cars were struggling in the heat. Record highs. It was 110 or 112 in Coalinga when I was wrenching in my battery box. My shirt looked like I just did a 2-hour half marathon. It's not a great look. But yeah.
I get worn out on events when I watch people work on my cars too. So it's tough.
Zach and I we took my old 912 a couple of years, maybe 4 years ago on the Mother Load, and it was 110. Mother Load rally was 110.
Yeah, great event. Unfortunately, it doesn't end at Morro Bay. It's still 110 once you get back.
That's right. It was 110 at the hotel too. That's the downside. That is brilliant of the fault line.
Yeah,
you struggle through the heat, and in those, what I love about those rallies is, even just 200 miles of fast driving on back roads in a 60s or 70s sports car, you really feel like you've accomplished something. I mean, it's because I'm a soft.
And you feel like you went somewhere.
Totally.
Yep.
You really earned that beer at the end of the day. I love that about them. But I haven't had a mechanical issue like that in a long time. So it's easy for me to be.
It really speaks to the character of others on the event. 1, that they're so willing to help and save me. And 2, just the automotive knowledge that's collectively there in a parking lot like that it's pretty incredible.
Totally.
So can't recommend it enough. Check those voltage regulators for other 70s 911 and 914 owners.
Yep. Respect your AutoZone support staff as well.
So you came out of it with a free voltage regulator, so that's good. You've upgraded the car.
I saved $13, but I spent $180 on that motorcycle battery that I'm immediately going to have to recycle to get the new correctly sized batteries in there.
There you go. Awesome, guys. Well, we covered a lot of ground today. Duesenbergs, Motocompos, Zac's rally.
That's the end of it?
I think so.
It goes by quick.
Acknowledge the LFA.
Oh, yeah, we should acknowledge the LFA and the Midnight Purple R34s.
Oh, which one?
Yeah, both of them.
Back to back.
One is still
pretty
live,
amazing.
Those are amazing cars.
So I actually have somewhere to be, so I'm cutting it short.
Okay.
So,
Wait, can I at least congratulate you on the podcast first? Because you've done an amazing job. I've enjoyed listening to it. And actually got a shout out at, you got a shout out at Berkeley Cars and Coffee this weekend. My first car event I've been doing, I think, since the pandemic started. Alex Jordan, the organizer, was like, "Hey, tell Howard and Randy I'm really enjoying it."
That's awesome.
Yeah,
they still do it I went to that once. They still do it at the same location.
Yeah, Zac and I went to the first one, I think, which was like actually behind a little tiny coffee house.
That's the one I went to.
Yeah, I think maybe you were there on that first one. There was only about 20 spots,
Okay.
and it was like they outgrew that quickly. But now it's in front of this super cool, like kind of Bauhaus-inspired office building that like the parking lot's empty on the weekends.
Down by the tracks, man.
Down the tracks, right by Spangers. You know Spangers, the old fish and chip spot there, right under University Overpass.
The old fraternity date night spot for end of year date night party.
Totally. And it was great. I mean, there was amazing Sprint Speciale. There was
the turnout looked ridiculous. I was looking
it's
through
insane.
it all. Yeah.
It was like really, really, really cool. A really good mix and really fun. Anyway, Alex Jordan, big fan, as am I. So
awesome. Well, thank you, Alex. You were awesome. I would love, like I said, I don't know why we've waited this long. Now that you're back in the office, things are opening back up. You're gonna be a mainstay here.
Love it.
You're the next BAT pod stalwart, so I hope you're ready for that. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another installment.